Welcome to 24 Karis. I'm Kelly Johnson, the founder and CEO of Karis by KJE. We are a leader in the diversity, equity, and inclusion space, enabling organizations to experience the power of we, the power of diversity, equity, and inclusion, transforming the workplace culture. We are in a series where we are talking to Gerri Mason Hall, the Vice President of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging for NetApp. She is truly a leader in this space, working for global organizations, leading change, leading sustainability, leading DEI. Gerri, thank you so much for being a part of 24 Karis.
Great, happy to be back.
So I know you and I share this passion and commitment to paying it forward, of really helping to reach others and grow the careers of others. And we have a mutual friend who I think would definitely be, she is so thankful for your mentorship and leadership over the years. Talk to me a little bit about how you've been a voice for people of color, women who are still underrepresented in senior executive ranks.
Yeah. So part of my superpowers is being able to see the talent that is invisible to others. And so more often than not, I've been able, and I've been blessed with the roles that I've been in, by the way. So I've been a former CHRO, I've been a former DEI lead, etc. And so I've been positioned to see talent and be able to sponsor. And so that's, I think, the biggest contribution, the biggest impact that I have is to have the voice of a sponsor. I do a lot of mentoring, but the sponsorship is where you have the greatest impact. So, of course, I can speak up in executive talent reviews, for example, where I can talk about these untapped talents, these women who I have observed their skill sets. I've worked with them on special projects. I've seen them in action where other executives may not have been exposed. And so there's the opportunity, again, as a sponsor, I can highlight these underrepresented groups and bring them to the forefront. And then also gently pushing my peers to engage and now see this talent in the same way that I do. So I think that's one of the critical areas. But I think the mentoring is important. As you mentioned, our mutual friend, I was so excited to have the opportunity to work closely with her and to nurture her and accelerate her advancement. And so where others, I was in a position to make some changes where others had underestimated her abilities. I stretched her and gave her that opportunity. So again, that mentorship evolved into sponsorship. And then I was in a position to advance her. And of course, we're seeing her blossom all on her own. And she's giving back to others as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yes, I've seen it firsthand. And I'm glad you brought up kind of the distinction between mentorship and sponsorship. They're both important and they both play a role. They, even in some of your own individuals that you have helped guide and nurture, cultivate, it's an evolution sometimes. It may start off as mentoring and then evolve into sponsorship, as you just indicated. But what would you say to the person who maybe feels like they're in an organization where they're not seen, they're not getting mentored, and they're certainly not getting sponsored? What advice or counsel would you give to them?
Sometimes you got to make the hard call. Am I in the right place? And that's what we're seeing a lot of this so-called great resignation. It's more of a reshuffling. Have I exhausted my opportunities to be mentored and sponsored? And do I not see anything else in this location? There's plenty of opportunity out there. So, but if you want to stay, if you want to stay. I'm sure if you are interested in staying in an organization, there has to be someone that you can go to. There has to be, if it's not your direct manager, maybe it's a role like ours, or your HR business partner, or just someone that you admire and you've seen how they've advanced in the organization. But reach out, but be prepared. Be prepared for the ask. Come with your specifics of what you're interested in. Most people, 9 out of 10 times, they're going to be flattered. They're going to try to help you. And then if you absolutely cannot find any of that in an organization, it's time to rethink that organization.
Yeah, yeah. I remember sharing when we were doing some sponsorship training for an organization, sharing with sponsors that you have to recognize if you are a sponsor or an executive in an organization, and maybe you are a part of the majority population, and you are trying to mentor and or sponsor someone from an underrepresented community. One, I think, misperception is that people think that everyone has access to mentoring and coaching, or that they have access to the tough conversations that it takes to refine and hone and advance your career. I remember mentoring a lot of people when I was inside a corporation, and time again, women and women of color would come to my office and sit down in my chair and say, I don't understand why I'm not getting promoted. My performance reviews are good. I'm actually tapped to train the new people in our department, but yet the promotion goes to someone else, and that someone else is someone who does not look like me. And, I was not in a place to really be able to help them know what that hidden reason was, because managers were not providing the feedback. They were not providing the direct information that people needed to refine and to grow. Now, it's a complex issue, and I'm sure there was all kinds of unconscious biases that were impacting the perceptions about that talent or that individual. But what would you say for, speak to both leaders in an organization who have a responsibility to develop others who may not look like them? And I'll just stop there. Speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, so you kind of said it at the outset that this work is really about strong leadership. So leaders at all levels, by the way, so not just your C-suite, but leaders at all levels. If you are a strong leader, you are inclusive. And so inherent in that inclusivity, right, there is that focus on the talent on your teams and being mindful of all of the members of the team and who's getting the opportunities, whose voice is being heard. And so as an inclusive leader, you are focused on just that, making sure, because, diversity isn't just about the gender and the ethnicity. Those are some of our starting points. But who's the introvert? Who doesn't have the loudest voice? Are you overlooking because they're quiet and because they're methodical and they're sitting back and thinking before they act? Or are you only responding to the loudest voice in the room? Those types of things, that's what an inclusive leader looks for and addresses. So heavier burden on the leader to do that, but the individual has to own their career as well. And they have to, it might be uncomfortable, but they have to navigate that discomfort and ask for the feedback, demand the feedback. Our practice at NetApp is our regular, what we call quarterly conversations. And so this is not the time to talk about tasks and project updates. This is the time to talk about the individual, their development, their gaps in their skill sets that we want to close those gaps. And what does that look like? Is it on the job training? Is it a course? in text, those types of things. That's what the quarterly conversations should entail. And that's that opportunity for the individual to get that feedback and say, okay, I was overlooked on that last role. How do I prepare myself for the next time this comes up?
Yeah. I love that you talked about how every person has to own their career. And I would just build on that and say, not only ask for the feedback, but as my mother would say when I was growing up, fix your face. Like, if you ask for the feedback, be prepared for what you get
Yes.
and handle it with
Yes.
professionalism and receive
Yes.
it, even if you don't like it or agree with it, because there could be some truth to it. And I think women and people of color, sometimes the reasons they don't get the feedback, the direct feedback, is that managers are afraid. A male manager might be afraid of giving tough feedback to a woman, right? Me Too movement, that fear of repercussion or the fear of being labeled racist if I give a person of color some tough feedback. And so, as individuals, we have to be prepared to receive what we might hear and then create a plan to, find the truth, find the golden nugget, as we like to say, find if there's a level of truth to it and figure out a plan to address it.
So not be defensive in the moment, but go back, reflect and see how you can in fact address and find that nugget within, even if you don't agree 100%. But I'll go back to those leaders who might be afraid for fear of repercussion, fear of you're not a strong leader. I'm just going to say that. A strong leader who has developed their inclusive leadership muscle will in fact take it on and say, okay, I'm going to run this risk, but it's in the interest of the better good, the interest of the whole. So that's the developing that leadership muscle. So you're not afraid of any repercussions and you prepare yourself accordingly.
That's so
But
good.
that's why you have partners like your HR business partner.
Yes.
You have support like you, Kelly, and your organization to, in fact, help those leaders to develop that muscle and to navigate some of these challenges.
Yep. Thank you. Yes. And leaders like you in the organization, right? I mean, if you happen to be a part of an organization with a senior executive who sits in that place of owning and leading DEI, that is another resource. But I do appreciate you also kind of playing that back, that if I'm a leader, I have to do my own work to get more comfortable and to refine, to develop that cultural intelligence, to communicate to a broad spectrum of individuals. So this is so good. I've been waiting for this conversation for a long time. We've been talking about doing this for a long time. So thank you so much, Gerri. We will continue the dialogue. And thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your courage and your consistency in this industry and in this space. The world is better for it. So thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.
And we are super thankful that you are a part of the 24 Karat community. We are so honored to be your partners in living out a consistent commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion 24/7. We'll be back with more great content and more great insights from our guest, Gerri Mason Hall, so tune in.